My rich uncle found out I was living in my car while working two jobs to pay for college, and my cousins were making fun of me to everyone. Now he's flipping the script. Hey Reddit, never thought I'd be posting this, but here we are. This story's been eating at me for months and I need to get it out. Fair warning, it's long, it's messy, and it involves family being absolute garbage humans. But stick with me because the ending? Chef's kiss. I'm Roy, 23 male, and until about 6 months ago, I was living in my car while working two jobs and trying to finish my engineering degree. Yeah, you read that right. Living in my car. Not because I was on some minimalist journey or trying to be trendy, because I literally had no other choice. But let me back up and give you the full picture of how spectacularly dysfunctional my family is. My dad bounced when I was 8, just straight up left one day for cigarettes and never came back. Classic deadbeat dad story. Mom did her best raising me and my younger sister Tasha alone, but money was always tight. She worked as a nurse's aide at a care facility, pulling doubles whenever she could, but it barely covered rent and food. We lived in this cramped two-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town where gunshots at night were basically white noise. Meanwhile, my dad's brother, Uncle James, was living large. And I mean large. Dude made a fortune in commercial real estate back in the 90s and never looked back. McMansion in the suburbs, 3 luxury cars, annual vacations to Europe. His wife, Aunt Patricia, was one of those women who spent her days at the country club and her nights at charity galas, pretending she cared about the poor while looking down on anyone who actually was poor. They had 2 kids, Blake, 25 male, and Madison, 22 female. My cousins, the golden children who'd never worked a day in their lives but somehow thought they were better than everyone else because their last name came with a trust fund. Here's the thing about rich relatives. They love to talk about family and helping each other out. But the second you actually need help, suddenly it's all about personal responsibility and not enabling bad choices. Growing up, Uncle James would show up to family gatherings in his Mercedes, give us these patronizing pats on the head, and lecture my mom about budgeting while his kids wore designer clothes and complained about their iPhones being last year's model. Blake went to an Ivy League school, full ride courtesy of dad's connections and massive donations. Graduated with a degree in something useless like philosophy, then got handed a cushy job at one of Uncle James's companies, where his main responsibility seemed to be playing golf with clients and posting LinkedIn thought leadership about disruption and innovation. Madison went to a private liberal arts college, changed her major 4 times, and was currently taking time to find herself, which translated to posting Instagram photos from Bali and Tulum on her parents' dime, while calling it her journey of self-discovery. Me? I busted my ass in high school, got solid grades despite working part-time at a grocery store, and got into the state university for mechanical engineering. No fancy scholarships, no family connections, just student loans and determination. Mom helped when she could, but most months she was choosing between keeping the lights on or buying groceries, so I wasn't about to ask her for tuition money. When I started college, I was living in the dorms, working at a campus coffee shop, and barely scraping by. Then sophomore year hit and everything fell apart. Mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage 2. The medical bills started piling up immediately, even with insurance. She had to cut back her hours for treatment, which meant less income. I tried to help with what I could from my coffee shop wages, but it wasn't enough. That's when I had to make the choice. Keep living in the dorms and watch my mom drown in debt, or drop out of housing and find something cheaper. The problem was, even the crappiest apartments in the area were $800 a month minimum, and that was before utilities and food. I was already taking out maximum student loans for tuition. There was nothing left. So I did what I had to do. I moved into my car. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just until mom got through treatment and could work full-time again. Just until I could save up enough for a deposit on a place. But temporary became 6 months, then a year. Then here I am at 2 years and counting. Living in a car isn't like the movies make it seem. It's not some quirky adventure or character-building experience. It's grinding, degrading, and exhausting in ways that never really go away. My Civic became my entire world. I had a gym membership at Planet Fitness specifically for the showers. $10 a month was the best investment I ever made. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. in whatever parking lot I'd found the night before, usually behind a 24-hour Walmart or in the far corner of a shopping center, and my entire body would be stiff from sleeping curled up in the back seat. I kept a sleeping bag, a pillow, and some extra clothes back there. That was it. Everything else I owned fit in a backpack. Textbooks, laptop, chargers, toiletries. The routine was brutal. Wake up before security or cops could hassle me about sleeping in my car. Drive to Planet Fitness, shower, brush my teeth, try to look like a normal college student instead of someone who just spent the night in a vehicle. Then head to campus for my 8 a.m. classes. Between classes, I'd work my first job at the coffee shop on campus. 4-hour shifts, 5 days a week, making minimum wage plus whatever tips students felt generous enough to leave. Most days that was maybe $40 to $50 total, barely enough to cover gas and food. After my last class ended around 4 p.m., I'd grab something cheap from the campus food court, usually a $3 slice of pizza or a $5 burrito bowl that I could stretch into 2 meals. Then, I'd hit the library to study and do homework until they closed at midnight, because studying in my car meant running the battery down and I couldn't afford to replace it. Once the library closed, I'd drive to my second job, overnight security guard at a storage facility, midnight to 6 a.m., 3 nights a week. The pay was slightly better at $12 an hour, and the best part was I could study during the shift since nothing ever really happened. I'd sit in the guard shack, keep an eye on the cameras, make my hourly rounds, and work on problem sets for my engineering classes. On nights I didn't have the security job, I'd find somewhere safe to park and crash for a few hours before starting the whole cycle again. Weekends were for catching up on sleep when I could, working extra shifts and doing laundry at the laundromat. The hardest part wasn't the physical exhaustion, though that was definitely brutal. It was the mental weight of constantly hiding what was happening, making sure no one from school saw where I slept, pretending everything was fine when classmates complained about their dorm roommates or argued about which off-campus apartment had the best amenities. Watching them stress about papers and exams while I was stressed about where my next meal was coming from and whether my car would start in the morning. I kept my situation completely secret. Told my roommate freshman year I was moving in with family when I really moved into my car. Told my campus friends I was living off campus now, and kept interactions there instead of anywhere near where I was actually parking at night. The shame was crushing, even though logically, I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. This was survival. But society tells you if you're homeless, even college-educated homeless, you must have screwed up somewhere. The worst moments were during winter. Michigan winters in a car are no joke. I'd run the heat for 20 minutes at a time, then turn it off to save gas, then turn it back on when I literally couldn't feel my fingers anymore. I'd wear 3 layers of clothes to bed, stuff newspaper around the windows for insulation, and still wake up shivering. More than once I seriously considered just dropping out entirely, but the thought of wasting 2 years of work and loans for nothing kept me going. There were nights when I'd sit in that cold car, breath fogging up the windows, and wonder what Blake and Madison were doing. Probably sleeping in their comfortable beds, probably not worrying about anything more serious than what to wear tomorrow, or which restaurant to try for dinner. The unfairness of it all would hit me like a physical weight on my chest. Through all of this, I avoided family gatherings like the plague. Couldn't risk anyone finding out. Couldn't handle the questions or the pity or worse, the judgment. Mom knew things were tight for me, but I never told her the full extent. She had enough to worry about with her own health and finances. Every time she asked how I was doing, I'd give her the same answer. I'm managing, Mom. Don't worry about me. Which brings me to my cousins and how this whole situation exploded. Blake and Madison somehow found out about my living situation. To this day, I still don't know exactly how. Maybe they saw my car parked somewhere it shouldn't be. Maybe they heard something from a mutual acquaintance. Maybe they hired a private investigator because they were that bored and petty. But about 6 months ago, they found out, and instead of showing an ounce of human decency, they turned my tragedy into entertainment. It started with Blake. I hadn't seen him in over a year when I ran into him at a gas station near campus. I was filling up my Civic, trying to squeeze every dollar's worth out of the tank, when I heard this obnoxious voice behind me. Roy? Holy shit, is that you? I turned around and there he was. Designer jeans, expensive jacket, $100 haircut. Standing next to his Audi like he owned the whole gas station. The contrast between us was stark. Him looking like he'd just stepped out of a GQ photo shoot, me in my worn jeans and faded hoodie that had seen better days. Hey Blake, I said, trying to sound casual. How's it going? Can't complain, man. Just finished playing golf with some clients. You still doing the college thing? The college thing. Like it was some hobby I was dabbling in instead of the reason I was working myself into the ground. Yeah, senior year now. Engineering. That's cool, that's cool. He looked at my car with this weird expression, like he was putting pieces together. His eyes lingered on the sleeping bag visible in the back seat, the box of granola bars on the passenger seat, the stack of textbooks. You living nearby? Around, I said vaguely. You know how it is. His eyes narrowed slightly, and I could see the gears turning in his head. Right. Well, good seeing you, man. Stay warm out here. That last comment hit different. Stay warm. Like he knew something. Like he'd figured it out and was already planning how to use the information. 2 weeks later, Madison posted on Instagram. I only found out because my friend Tyler showed me. I'd stopped following my cousins years ago. The post was a photo of her at some trendy brunch spot, mimosa in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her head, caption reading, Sunday vibes. So grateful to come home to my cozy apartment after brunch and not, a parking lot. Blessed, now our gratitude, perspective. The comments were full of her friends asking what she meant. She'd responded to one. Just thinking about people who make poor life choices, lol. Can't relate. Sometimes you have to work smarter, not harder. Tyler showed me because he knew we were related. Dude, your cousin's kind of a bitch. Yeah, I said, staring at the screen. She really is. But it got worse. So much worse. Apparently Blake and Madison started telling people at family gatherings. Cousins I barely knew. Aunts and uncles I only saw at weddings and funerals. They'd turned my situation into some kind of cautionary tale, spinning it like I was living in my car because I was irresponsible or lazy or made bad choices. Like working 2 jobs while maintaining a 3.7 GPA in one of the hardest majors was somehow evidence of failure. Like choosing to help my mom with cancer treatment instead of living comfortably was a character flaw. I found this out at my grandmother's birthday party 3 months ago. I almost didn't go, but Mom guilted me into it. And honestly, I missed Grandma. She'd always been kind to me growing up. When Dad left, she was the one who brought us groceries and slipped me $20 bills, telling me to buy something nice for myself. The party was at Uncle James's house, naturally. Walking in there felt like entering a different dimension. Marble floors, crystal chandelier in the entryway, professionally catered food, the works. I showed up in my cleanest jeans and a button-down I'd found at Goodwill, trying to blend in with cousins wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly food budget. Blake and Madison were holding court in the living room, surrounded by younger cousins who looked at them like celebrities. I tried to slip past to find Grandma, but Madison spotted me. "Oh my God, Roy!" she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I almost didn't recognize you without your car." The room got quiet. People turned to look. I felt my face getting hot. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Nothing, nothing." She waved her hand, that fake innocent smile on her face. "Just so proud of you for making it work, Living the minimalist lifestyle and all. Very trendy." Blake joined in, walking over with that same condescending smirk I'd seen at the gas station. "Yeah, man, takes real dedication. Most people couldn't handle sleeping in a Civic for what, 2 years now? That's commitment to the grind." My stomach dropped. They were really doing this. In front of everyone, making a public spectacle of my private hell. "At least I'm paying my own way through school," I said quietly. Madison laughed, that high-pitched fake laugh that made my skin crawl. "Paying your way? With what, the coffee shop salary? Blake, didn't you say you saw him working security overnight? That's so entrepreneurial. A real hustler." "Super entrepreneurial," Blake agreed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Really pulling himself up by those bootstraps." Very inspiring story. I felt everyone's eyes on me. Pity from some, curiosity from others, judgment from a few. My face burned with shame and anger. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, when a voice cut through the room like a knife. "What the hell did you just say?" Everyone turned. Uncle James was standing in the doorway leading from the kitchen, and his face was absolutely thunderous. I'd never seen him angry before. Disappointed, sure. Distant, definitely. But never angry like this. His usually composed expression was completely shattered, replaced by something that looked like barely controlled rage. "Dad, we were just—" Madison started, her voice suddenly small. "I asked you a question." His voice was ice cold. "What did you just say to Roy?" Blake tried to play it off, forcing a casual shrug. "We were just messing around, Dad. Roy knows we're joking." "Right, Roy. Joking." Uncle James repeated the word like it tasted rotten. "You think it's funny that your cousin is working 2 jobs while living in his car to put himself through college?" The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on those marble floors. Aunt Patricia had appeared behind Uncle James, her face pale. "We didn't mean—" Madison tried again. "How long have you known?" Uncle James cut her off, still staring at them with that cold fury. His hands were clenched at his sides, shaking slightly. "A few months," Blake admitted reluctantly. "But Dad, it's not like—" "A few months." Uncle James's jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jumping. You've known for months that your cousin was homeless and you never thought to tell me? You never thought that maybe, just maybe, I'd want to know that my nephew was sleeping in his car while you two were posting pictures from your vacation in Tulum. Madison's face went pale. She glanced at Blake, looking for backup, but he was staring at the floor. We didn't think it was that big a deal. He seemed fine, like he had it under control. He seemed fine. Uncle James looked at her like he'd never seen her before, like she was a complete stranger. Your cousin has been living in a car for 2 years while you've been spending my money on brunch and yoga classes and Instagram-worthy vacations, and you didn't think it was a big deal. He turned to me then, and his expression shifted from anger to something I'd never seen from him before. Genuine concern mixed with what looked like shame. Roy, is this true? You've been living in your car? I wanted to lie, wanted to say Blake and Madison were exaggerating or confused or making it up for attention. But I was so tired of lying, of hiding, of pretending everything was fine when it absolutely wasn't. Tired of carrying this secret around like a weight on my chest. Yeah, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Since sophomore year, after Mom got sick and I had to choose between paying for housing or helping with her medical bills. The room stayed silent. Several of my aunts and uncles looked genuinely shocked. My cousin Tyler looked horrified. Grandma, sitting in her chair by the window, had tears in her eyes. Uncle James closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath, then looked at me again. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? The words came out before I could stop them, raw and honest. You never asked. You never checked in after Dad left. You just showed up to family dinners once or twice a year and talked about your real estate deals while Mom worked doubles to keep us fed. Why would I think you'd suddenly care now? He flinched like I'd slapped him. Roy, It's fine, I cut him off, grabbing my jacket from the back of the chair. I've managed this long. I'll keep managing. Thanks for the party, Grandma. Happy birthday. I turned to leave. Couldn't stay in that house another second. The walls felt like they were closing in. Everyone's stares burning into my back. But Uncle James called after me. Roy, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. My hand was on the doorknob, ready to escape. Give me your phone number. Your real number, not the old one I have saved from when you were a kid. Why? I asked, still not turning around. Because apparently I've been a shit uncle who didn't notice his own nephew was homeless, and I'd like to try changing that, if you'll let me. I almost kept walking. Almost told him it was too late, that I didn't need his pity or his money or his guilty conscience. But something in his voice stopped me. Something genuine that I'd never heard from him before. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe I was just tired of doing everything alone. I gave him my number without looking at him, then walked out into the cold night air. That night, sitting in my car behind the Walmart where I usually parked, trying to get warm enough to sleep, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Uncle James. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., meet me at Denny's on Main Street. We need to talk. And Roy, thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. I stared at that message for a long time, reading it over and over, trying to figure out if this was real or if he'd wake up tomorrow and forget all about it. If this was just guilt talking, and by morning he'd be back to his usual distant self. Finally, I typed back, okay. Then I curled up in my sleeping bag, set my alarm for 5 a.m., and tried to sleep. Didn't work. I spent most of the night staring at the ceiling of my car, wondering what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, I showed up at Denny's looking like absolute death. I'd worked the security shift the night before because I couldn't afford to miss it, gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep in my car after the party, and hadn't had time to shower at Planet Fitness yet. Uncle James was already there, sitting in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee waiting on the table. You look terrible, he said as I slid into the seat across from him. Thanks. You look rich. The words came out harsher than I meant them to, but I was running on fumes and couldn't summon the energy to be polite. He actually smiled at that, small and sad. Yeah, I do. He pushed one of the coffees toward me. Drink. Then I want you to tell me everything. Start to finish. Don't leave anything out. I want to understand what I've been too blind to see. So I did. Told him about Mom's cancer diagnosis, the medical bills that kept piling up, the choice between dorms and helping her. Told him about dropping out of housing, the 2 jobs, the Planet Fitness membership, sleeping in my car through 2 Michigan winters. Told him about eating 1 meal a day to save money, about the shame of hiding it from everyone, about the crushing loneliness of going through this alone. He didn't interrupt, just listened, with this expression that got more and more pained as I went on. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I never expected. I'm sorry. For what? For not being there. For you? For your mom? for any of it. After your dad left, I told myself I was giving your mother space to handle things her way. I told myself she was too proud to accept help, that she'd ask if she needed it. Truth is, I was avoiding the guilt of watching my brother abandon his family while I was too busy building an empire to care about the people he left behind. He met my eyes. That was wrong. And what happened last night with Blake and Madison? That was unforgivable. They're your kids. You don't have to. Yes, I do. They're adults who thought it was funny to mock someone for being in an impossible situation. Adults who knew their cousin was homeless and turned it into entertainment for their friends. That's not how I raised them. Or at least, that's not how I thought I raised them. He shook his head. Clearly, I failed somewhere along the way. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed me the screen. A bank transfer confirmation. $25,000 to my account. What is this? I asked, my heart racing. My hands started shaking, making the coffee cup rattle against the saucer. Back pay. For 2 years of being homeless while I lived in comfort and ignored you. While your cousins made fun of you and I raised them to think that was acceptable. It's not enough, Roy. It's not nearly enough. But it's a start. Uncle James, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. His voice was firm, but not unkind. That money is yours. No strings attached. But I'm also offering you something else. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a lease agreement for a 1-bedroom apartment 3 blocks from campus. I own the building, he explained. The apartment's been vacant for a month. First and last month's rent already paid. Utilities included. It's yours as long as you're in school. And after graduation, we'll figure something out. I don't want to hear any arguments about it. I stared at the lease, not quite believing it was real. The address, the terms, my name typed at the bottom waiting for a signature. A real apartment. A real bed. A real shower. The simple things I'd taken for granted before sophomore year and desperately missed every single day since. Why are you doing this? My voice cracked. Because I should have done it 2 years ago. Hell, I should have done it the day your dad left. Because you're family, and I failed you in every way that matters. He paused. And because seeing what my kids have become is a wake-up call I apparently desperately needed. They're spoiled, entitled, and cruel. I did that. I let that happen. But I can start fixing it now. What about Blake and Madison? His expression hardened. They're being cut off. Effective immediately. No more trust fund access. No more apartment rent paid. No more credit cards. No more car payments. Blake's fake job at my company where he does nothing but golf with clients? Gone. Madison's finding herself tour of Southeast Asia? Over. They want to be independent adults who look down on people actually working hard? Fine. They can figure out how real life works without my money propping them up. I felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt at that. Uncle James, you don't have to punish them on my behalf. I'm not punishing them on your behalf. I'm giving them the education they should have gotten years ago. They need to learn that actions have consequences and that mocking someone in your family for struggling isn't just cruel, it's unacceptable. He leaned back in the booth. Besides, I'd like to actually get to know my nephew. The real one. Not the one I've been ignoring and failing for 2 decades. That conversation happened 4 months ago. Let me tell you what's happened since. I moved into the apartment Uncle James provided that same week. The first night I slept there, I actually cried. Having a real bed, a shower I could use whenever I wanted, a kitchen where I could cook actual meals instead of eating gas station food, it was literally life-changing. I stood in the shower for 30 minutes that first night, just letting hot water run over me, washing away 2 years of living rough. I still work the coffee shop job because I need spending money, and I genuinely like the routine and my coworkers. Plus, the free coffee doesn't hurt. But I quit the overnight security gig. For the first time in 2 years, I'm sleeping through the night instead of catching a few hours here and there between jobs and classes. My grades have actually improved now that I'm not constantly exhausted. Uncle James and I have dinner once a week now. Sometimes it's fancy places he picks, trying to make up for lost time. Sometimes it's the sketchy Chinese food place near campus that I love because they give huge portions for cheap. He asks about my classes, my plans after graduation, what engineering projects I'm working on. Actually listens to the answers. Remembers details and asks follow-up questions the next week. It's weird having a real relationship with him, but it's good weird. The kind of weird that feels like maybe family is supposed to feel this way. The $25,000 he gave me is sitting in a high-yield savings account. I've been using it to pay down my student loans aggressively and setting some aside for after graduation when I'll need deposits and furniture for my own place. Uncle James keeps offering to pay off the loans entirely, but I told him no. Some things I need to do myself. He respected that. Said he understood and hasn't pushed. As for Blake and Madison, the cutoff hit them catastrophically hard. Blake's living in a studio apartment in a rough part of town now, the kind of neighborhood I used to live in with Mom. He's working retail at a department store for the first time in his life. Minimum wage, no health insurance, constantly getting yelled at by customers and managers. He called me last month, voice desperate, begging for advice on budgeting and how to make $1,200 a month cover everything. I gave him the number for Planet Fitness and told him the $10 membership is worth it for the showers and the gym access. Told him ramen is cheap, but you need to add vegetables or you'll get sick. Told him thrift stores have decent work clothes if you know where to look. He didn't find any of it funny. Kept asking when I thought his dad would come around and ease up. I told him that was between him and Uncle James. Madison moved back home with Uncle James and Aunt Patricia after running out of money somewhere in Bali, having to call home begging for a plane ticket after her credit cards got declined. She's working as a server at a chain restaurant now and absolutely hating every second of it. Uncle James told her she needs to save up 6 months of rent before he'll even consider helping her get her own place again. Last I heard, she's 3 months in and miserable. She posted on Instagram about learning humility and finding herself through struggle, which got absolutely dragged in the comments by people who saw through her performative bullshit. Someone commented, "Maybe you should have thought about humility before mocking your homeless cousin," and it got 300 likes. She deleted the post an hour later. The best part? They both tried reaching out to apologize. Blake sent this long text about how he didn't realize how his words could hurt, and he was sorry for not being more supportive during a difficult time. Said he was going through a lot right now, and hoped we could rebuild our relationship, because family is important. Madison tried calling multiple times, finally leaving a voicemail where she was crying about how she just wants her family back, and how she never meant to be cruel and was learning so much about herself through this experience. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost impressive. I didn't respond to either of them. Deleted Blake's text, deleted Madison's voicemail. Uncle James asked if I wanted to have a family dinner where they could apologize properly, face to face. I told him maybe someday, but not yet. Right now, I'm focused on finishing my degree, maintaining my GPA, and preparing for the future. Speaking of which, I've got 3 job prospects lined up already for after graduation, all at major engineering firms, all offering salaries that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago when I was sleeping in a Walmart parking lot and wondering if I'd even make it through junior year. The interviews went well, really well. Turns out working 2 jobs while maintaining a 3.7 GPA and living in your car shows the kind of work ethic and problem-solving skills that engineering firms value. One interviewer actually asked about the gap in my housing on the background check form. I was honest about it, figured they'd find out anyway. Expected it to be a problem. Instead, the guy conducting the interview looked at me differently after I explained, asked a few follow-up questions about how I manage time and stress. 2 weeks later, they offered me the job. Said my demonstrated ability to succeed under adverse conditions was exactly what they needed. Starting salary is $73,000 plus benefits. I almost cried when I got the offer letter. Mom's in remission now, by the way. The cancer's gone and she's back to work full-time at the care facility. Uncle James set her up with a financial advisor to help manage her medical debt and is covering her co-pays and deductibles for the next 5 years of follow-up care. When he told her, she actually broke down sobbing in his kitchen. They've been talking more too, working through a lot of old family stuff that's been buried for 20 years. Turns out holding grudges doesn't help anyone. Mom told me she's proud of me last week. Not for getting the job or the good grades, but for surviving the last 2 years without becoming bitter or giving up. Said she wished she'd known how bad things were so she could have helped, even though logically there was nothing she could have done. I told her she'd helped by teaching me to keep going even when everything sucks. She cried again. We both did. Grandma told me she's proud of me too. Said she knew I was going through something rough but didn't realize how bad it was. That she wished I'd told her. She's 89 and sharper than anyone gives her credit for. We have lunch every other week now. Just the 2 of us at this diner she's been going to for 40 years. She tells me stories about growing up during the Depression, about making do with nothing, about the difference between being poor and being broke. Somehow those stories make me feel less alone in what I went through. Sometimes I drive past the Walmart where I used to park, the same spot in the back corner, under the tree where I felt safest, because the branches blocked most of the streetlight, and it was far enough from the building that security rarely checked it. It feels like a lifetime ago, and yesterday, at the same time. I don't miss it, not even a little bit. But I also don't regret it, because it taught me things about myself I wouldn't have learned any other way. I learned I'm stronger than I thought, that I can handle things that would break other people, that asking for help isn't weakness, but you have to know when you've truly done everything you can first. That family isn't always the people you're related to. Sometimes it's the Planet Fitness employee named Danny, who never asked questions about why I was there at 5 a.m. every morning, or Tyler, who showed me Madison's Instagram post because he knew I'd want to see how petty she was being, or even Uncle James, who finally stepped up after years of failure and distance. I graduate in 2 months. Uncle James is throwing a party, a real celebration, not some obligation thing where everyone pretends to care. He asked if I wanted to invite Blake and Madison. I said no, but thanks for asking and respecting my decision. He just nodded, said he understood completely, and changed the subject to whether I preferred Italian or Mexican food for the celebration. This whole experience has taught me something important. Sometimes the people who should help you won't, and sometimes the people you never expected will step up in ways that change your life completely. Uncle James flipped the script not just on Blake and Madison, but on himself too. He looked at what he'd become: absent, neglectful, raising entitled kids who mocked their cousin for being homeless, and decided to be better. Actually took action instead of just feeling guilty. That's more than most people do when confronted with their failures. As for Blake and Madison, I don't know if they'll learn anything from this, or if they'll just resent me forever for ruining their lives by existing and being honest about my situation. Honestly, I don't really care anymore. They had every advantage in life handed to them on a silver platter and chose to be cruel to someone who had nothing. Now they get to see what the real world looks like when daddy's money isn't there to cushion every fall. Maybe it'll make them better people eventually. Maybe it won't. Either way, that's not my problem to solve. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.